All right, let's jump into this deep dive, shall we? We're taking a look at high-ticket B2B sales, and specifically in the medical device industry today. You guys have been asking for this deep dive on Lucid Strategies, so I'm sure you already know they're doing things a little differently. They're not relying on ad campaigns. It's all about direct engagement.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating approach.
So their client lists is pretty impressive. It's like a who's who of the medical device world.
Yeah, they've really carved out a niche for themselves. Lucid Strategies works specifically with businesses navigating the complexities of selling those high-ticket medical devices.
Yeah.
And the thing that really caught my eye was their Sales Accelerator program. I think there's a lot to unpack there.
I think so too. One thing that really stuck out to me on their website is they actually say they act more as a long-term partner than some kind of a quick fix solution.
Right, which is so important in that space.
So I'm curious to see how that philosophy kind of translates into their overall approach.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk about these outreach templates for a second, specifically on LinkedIn. Have you gotten a chance to look at these?
I have. Yeah, they're very impressive.
The level of personalization they're using is next level.
It's really smart, and you know why it's so smart?
Why?
Everyone's bombarded with these generic messages.
Oh, tell me about it. My inbox is full of them.
Right, but imagine you're scrolling through, and then, boom, there's a message that addresses you by your name.
Yeah.
Mentions your specific work in medical devices. And then on top of that, directly addresses a challenge you face like every single day. We know you're going to read that.
Of course. You've got my attention. It's like those personalized commercials they try to do, but instead of being creepy, it's actually relevant.
Right.
It's actually interesting.
And think about it. It cuts through all that noise, and it shows you're genuinely interested in that person.
Exactly. That's gotta be refreshing, right? Instead of feeling like you're just a number on a spreadsheet, they're treating you like a human being.
Exactly. It really builds trust right from the start.
I bet it does, because it shows you've actually done your homework. You're not just sending out these mass messages and hoping something sticks.
Well, exactly. You're taking the time to understand their world, which I think is huge in a specialized field like medical devices.
Huge. And it's not just like send one message and hope for the best. They've got this whole kind of multi-touch approach that unfolds strategically.
Right.
And I love this. They don't waste any time. They make that connection on LinkedIn and boom, they're right into it.
Yeah, and that speaks to their understanding of their audience. Medical device executives are busy people.
Oh, I bet.
They don't have time to mess around. So you have to lead with value right away and make it very clear you understand their world.
That's such a good point because you're right. They're not messing around. I mean, in one of the very first messages I saw, they're already talking about a predictable and consistent stream of laser-targeted, highly qualified, and ready-to-buy leads. That's a mouthful, but it's like, boom, here's what we can do.
It's bold, but it's also really strategic, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not just making vague promises. They're actually quantifying their claims.
Yeah.
So when they say something like 2 to 8 qualified appointments per week, that really means something to these executives.
Right, because it's not just some fluffy marketing jargon. They're putting concrete numbers to it. That's got to be huge in high-ticket sales, right?
It is, because you need to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
That level of specificity shows confidence.
Absolutely. And it's not just about throwing numbers around either. They clearly understand that when someone's looking at a service like this, there's going to be a certain level of, I don't know, maybe skepticism.
Sure.
But they address it head on. I love that.
Yeah.
There's this one line, I think it's in one of the email follow-ups, where they say something like, "We've developed, tested, and fine-tuned this bulletproof funnel for companies in the medical device industry over and over."
Wow.
It's like they're saying, look, we've got the data to prove this works.
Yeah. Right. It's brilliant. They're not shying away from the potential objections. They're tackling them head on. And again, it goes back to that understanding of the challenges their potential clients are facing.
Okay, so speaking of challenges, here's my question. Are they just like taking these templates and firing them off to anyone who has the words medical device in their LinkedIn profile? Or do you think there's like a deeper layer of research and targeting going on behind the scenes?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to like the core of what makes Lucid Strategies so effective. Yeah. Because, yeah, we're looking at these templates, but I highly doubt they're just using like a one-size-fits-all approach.
So you're saying there's a method to the madness. There's something else going on here.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Because remember, they have that whole no ads thing.
Right.
That tells me they're all about hyper-targeted outreach.
Mm.
So yeah, they're probably using like data analysis. They're doing industry research, building these really detailed buyer personas. It's all about zeroing in on the right people with the right message.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense because, yeah, just blasting these messages out randomly wouldn't get you very far.
Yeah.
So they're being strategic about who they reach out to. But then what about the actual content of those LinkedIn connection requests? I'm looking at some of these and some of them are surprisingly short.
Right, and I think that's intentional.
You real?
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
They're not wasting anyone's time with a bunch of fluff. Like, look at this one, for example. Maximize your med device industry appointments with LinkedIn. Short, sweet, to the point.
Right to the point, yeah.
But it's also attention grabbing because it immediately makes you think, well, how?
It's like a little puzzle. You want to find out more.
Exactly. And then you've got some that are a little longer, but they're still laser focused, like this one. Boost your medical device sales with our unique approach. No more wasted time prospecting. They're subtly highlighting a problem and then hinting at the solution.
And I noticed they do a really good job of weaving in their value proposition without being like overtly salesy about it. Like using phrases like no ad spend. That's going to catch the eye of anyone who's been pouring money into traditional advertising or CRM integrated marketing. It tells you right away they're all about streamlined processes.
Exactly. And I think once that connection is made, then they really transition from, building rapport to showcasing their expertise.
Okay, so this is where things start to get really interesting.
Right, because now they're pulling back the curtain and showing you the nuts and bolts of their Sales Accelerator program.
Right. They start talking about daily outreach, managing your inbox. They even have like a CRM integration thing. They've got a whole team. They even mention a master messaging strategist, I think.
It's impressive.
So it's not just about like, here's some leads, good luck. They're really crafting this whole communication strategy.
Absolutely. And again, they're backing it up with concrete examples of how this translates into results for their clients. So they're using testimonials, they're using data points. Like you'll see things like, this is how our clients were able to hire additional sales reps, or this is how they were able to, expand their business sustainably.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That social proof is huge, especially in that B2B world, right? It's one thing to say you can deliver. It's another thing to actually show how you've done it for other people in the same industry.
Exactly. And remember that question about urgency? They kind of embed in those early messages. They reinforce it here by talking about the exclusivity of the program. So they'll say things like limited spots available or exclusive opportunity. They're tapping into that fear of missing out a little bit.
It's smart. It's really smart. So, okay, they've made that connection. They've built up their credibility. They've created this sense of urgency. What's the next move in this whole, like, carefully orchestrated dance?
This is where they go from building a case to prompting action.
Okay, so how do they do that? Give me an example.
So in one message, they actually include a Calendly link to make it super easy to book a time to chat. Another one, they cleverly segment their audience by asking people to reply with like a letter, A, B, C, D, or E, that just reflects their current sales challenges.
It's like a choose your own adventure, but for lead generation.
I love that, right?
It's so clever because it seems so simple, but it's actually brilliant for guiding people further down the funnel.
Exactly. And you know what else impressed me? They don't just give up if someone hesitates or says they're not interested right away.
Right.
They have these well-crafted responses that are designed to address objections, to re-emphasize their value proposition, and really just keep that conversation going.
So it's persistent, but it's not pushy.
Exactly.
They're not being aggressive.
No, they're acknowledging that, especially with a high-ticket service like this, not everyone's going to be ready to jump in right away.
Yeah, it's a process.
Exactly.
It makes sense though, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about these high-level B2B sales, you can't just be like, hey, click here to buy now. You need to nurture those relationships and build that trust over time.
And that's where I think their approach to follow-up is really smart. They manage to be persistent without being like overly aggressive.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed, they actually use humor pretty effectively. Like some of their email subject lines are actually kind of funny.
Oh, I saw that. Like they had one that said, perhaps seeing is believing. I would love showing you how it works.
Right.
It's playful. It's not like this desperate plea. Exactly. It just breaks down those barriers. It makes it feel more like a conversation than like a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And I think throughout those conversations, they're consistently reinforcing their expertise, the value they bring to the table.
It's like subtly reminding those potential clients, hey, we're still here and we got the solution to your problem.
Right.
So as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into Lucid Strategies here, what would you say is like the biggest takeaway, especially for our listeners who are in that B2B space? What can they learn from all of this?
I think it'd be really easy to look at this and say, well, I don't sell medical devices, so this doesn't really apply to me. But that's where I think you'd be missing the bigger picture. Because what Lucid Strategy is doing so well are these principles that can really apply across any industry. Oh, absolutely, yeah. At its core, it's all about understanding your audience, right?
Yeah,
It's about crafting that message that resonates with them and then building those relationships over time.
exactly. It's about using data to make your outreach smarter, more efficient, but not to like replace the human element altogether.
Right.
Because ultimately, people buy from people.
Couldn't agree more. So, to our listeners out there, if there's one thing you take away from this whole deep dive, I hope it's that. Building those genuine connections, it's just as important as having a solid strategy.
Absolutely. Think about your own outreach efforts. How can you incorporate that human touch a little bit more?
Yeah.
How can you tailor your approach to really resonate with the people you're trying to reach?
Those are such good questions, such good things to think about. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little inspiring. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep building those connections that drive success.